This is the Not Bitter, Just Better podcast.
The Everton our way.
Straight from the street end.
Howdy Blues, this is the Not Bitter, Just Better Everton podcast. Mr. Johnny Seven here. Recording Friday. I was going to record last night after the Peterborough game, but with all the developments, I thought I would hold off in case there was any news coming out of the club today, following all the news yesterday. What a day. What a week. Wow. So I'm going to go through I'm going to look at the news from yesterday and the rest of the week. I'm going to look at the preview that I kind of did ahead of the Peterborough game, and then look back at the Peterborough game, and then I don't know, it's going to be all over the show because the news and the game are kind of interlinked. We haven't got a game at the weekend because we played our weekend game on a Thursday night for the FA Cup third round, and our next game is on next Wednesday. So I'll do a show on Monday to preview that against Villa. So I think I'll start off with the Peterborough game. So there was, if you listen to Monday's show, or you just were following anything to do with Everton, you'll know that some of the stories came out that the freaking, why I can't say that, freaking group, it's not good for a podcast, there's a TFG, maybe I should go with that, were assessing Dyche's future. I think they were already doing it over the weekend, but then there's a little bit more of an urgent call following the Bournemouth defeat, and the reaction afterwards. Some of the comments didn't show Dyche in the best light, let's just say. If we won more games, then it wouldn't be a bad run. Yeah, no shit. I've just realised I've got my specs on because I'm blind today, and I feel like Stephen Warner. Anyway. Yeah, so there was a lot of talk about would he stay, would he go, but when it got to the day of the game, Thursday, it looked like he was going to stay. He took training at Finch Farm. I think they do a light training session on a match day or evening game day. And then it just looked like the day was going ahead, and any move would have been put off until after this game was out the way, and news started coming out. I think it was 4:25. Bear in mind the game kicked off at 7:45. That Dyche had left the club. So all the talk through the week was Potter was being lined up by Everton and West Ham. Lopetegui was sacked earlier on in the week, and West Ham seemed to be making a quick move for Potter, and Everton were being wondering whether they should do the same, apparently. But then West Ham moved quicker and got Potter signed up quite quickly on the Wednesday, I think that was. So if Everton were going to sack Dyche, then Potter was off the table. So it did look like he was going to be in charge last night, but ultimately was not. So 4:25, news came out through, I think Sky Sports broke it, and then through the official club channel, and it was announced that Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman would take charge for the Peterborough game. Positive for Blues, I guess, but that late in the day, the team came out, and apparently Dyche picked the team. And looking at the team on paper, where was this mixing it up for the past 2 years? So it looked like he went. It was a strange formation when you look at it on paper. Look at who played where. It looked like a 5-4-1 or a 3-2-4-1. Anyway, 5 defenders in a traditional sense. So we had Virginia in goal, Patterson on right back, O'Brien, Keane, and Branthwaite in the centre, Mikalenko on the left. Then we had Garner and Mangala. Then we had Armstrong and Ndai, and then Beto up top. That is, I'm sure this is the type of change that Everton fans have been crying out for a long time. Okay, it was against Peterborough, but this even change of formation, it looked like it could offer more. It's easy to say that in hindsight now. Maybe he knew he was a goner anyway, and he just thought, I'll mix it up. But apparently, he did pick the team and he did pick the formation. And then when Baines was quizzed on it, asked about what changes he'd make. It would just be some personal, individual notes to players and how to fit into that formation. So interesting. Anyway, the game kicks off, and it wasn't the best game. Let's say we some of the football, it seemed to be a little bit brighter, but some of the individual play, passing still wasn't great. The overall getting into the final third and creating an abundance of chances, we didn't do that. It was a little bit brighter, but it was against Peterborough. It had to be. So we did end up taking the lead. A nice through ball from Harrison Armstrong, our man of the match on the day, from the commentator or co-commentator Martin Keown on the BBC, and also as voted for by the fans through the club's social media. So, and it was a lovely through ball. Beto calmly rounds the keeper and slots from a tight angle. So proven is worth in a one-on-one situation. We thought he was on his way to Torino. He was photographed with a fan in the airport on Sunday, so it looked like he was going to be on his way. In fact, he started and scored, so good stuff. And again, really good contribution from Armstrong. There weren't an overly attacking amount of chances or anything. Mangala hit the corner of the post and crossbar with a decent volley. Let's say decent. It was if it went in, it would have been a worldie. And there were one or two other chances, but it wasn't overly convincing. And it didn't have to be real. We ended up taking a 2-0 victory. Ndai got a penalty in injury time. Branthwaite was brought down. Let me just see my notes here. I've actually got notes today, so that's I'm trying to be a little bit more professional again. Post-match comments. Baines has said the boys showed great character and deserved the win. Coleman, it's a positive result and we aim to build on this momentum. Armstrong expressed delight in contributing to the victory, stating, "I'm happy to help the team with the assist. It's a team effort and we move forward together." Squad in general, it did seem to be quite buoyed by the win. But again, it was Peterborough. We need to take this into the Villa game on Wednesday, and we will probably have a new man in place by then. Let's see. Overall, focusing on solid defence and quick counter-attacks, which proved effective against the League One side. And I don't know whether that's accurate. This is Reuters, apparently, their thoughts on that. Dominates possession, creating several scoring opportunities. A few. But again, as expected, it should have been a lot more against Peterborough, but I'm not going to kick them while they're down. We just needed to get through with a win, and we got through with a win. And it was comfortable in the end. Second half, unfortunately, there was an injury to Broja. He just went over dead awkwardly, but seemed to be holding his knee. his ankle turned a little bit, but his whole body seemed to just twist a little bit. And he was down on the deck for ages and ended up getting stretchered off with oxygen. So it didn't look good at all. He went straight off down to where the St. John's ambulance, if it's still called that, rather than down the tunnel, went off down that end of the ground. So it didn't look good. It looked like he was going to be taken straight off to hospital. But Baines has come out since and said that he wasn't taken to hospital. So it doesn't look as bad as first feared. So fingers crossed, because we need that option. Calvert-Lewin's took a knock again, and it can't just Beto does offer something. He is gangly, he is chaotic, but he's a threat if we are getting the ball forward. And that's been a massive if in the past few weeks, hasn't it? We did control the game. They had a few attacking. There was one bit in the first half where they had it kind of cleared off the line ish by Branthwaite. But overall, their chances were few and far between. They did have a few nice breaks forward, but not overly threatening. So Branthwaite fouled inside the box, and Ndiaye calmly converted the penalty. He just put it pretty much down the middle. So waited for the goalie to go, put it down the middle, down the Gladys Street end in the 98th minute, and seal the victory. So 2-0 Blues are on into the fourth round. So hopefully that won't be our last ever FA Cup game at Goodison. It was our last ever third round game in the FA Cup at Goodison. But hopefully we'll have a few more and we'll have a good run, and there'll be a few more to celebrate and get a good cup run going. As I said before, Armstrong took the player of the match, assist with the open goal, just assist for the opening goal. Sorry, not an open goal. And his work rate and his passing in general just showed he showed a lot of strength and a lot of positives. And as a 17-year-old, coming through, a real bright spark. 85% of his passes, and took the man of the match. It wasn't quite unanimous. There were a few shouts for Patterson as well. A good 2-0 victory. Not overly convincing, but at this point, with the way yesterday went, you'd take it, wouldn't you? Especially with the run of form. And on into the next round. So I'll be back in a little bit to talk about the news of the day yesterday and looking at our next steps. Cheers.
News.
So the main news, of course, is the sacking. Although there's a rumor that it might have been through a mutual decision. I'll go into that in a little bit. But 4:25 yesterday, 3 hours and a little bit ahead of the kickoff, news came out that Dyche has left Everton, and that Baines Coleman will be in charge and take care of the day-to-day business until we appoint someone, which looks like it might be quite soon. Run of 5 winless matches, 8 of the last 10 without a goal. The stats just don't read. They're appalling, really. So it had to happen. We have ummed and ahed a lot over the. He probably should have gone with that awful runless stage last year as well. 14 games, was it? I can't even remember. It was anyway. It was on a par with Mike Walker's. It was worse than Mike Walker's run, but he was given more time than other managers have been given in the past. And a lot of talk was around the stability of the club then. So Mashiri was looking to sell then, and it was always kind of like, well, what if who's going to sack him basically? So anyway, lasted this long. Uh, don't like some of the narrative that he's been putting out there, saying that the club was in a dire straits when he started, and they couldn't score before he started. And what have you been doing about it, though? Your solution for that was shutting up shop and trying to defend. It doesn't seem like the best managerial decision. Um, just hours before the cup game, that was an odd one. Mixed responses. I said mixed responses. There was an overwhelming sway of positivity coming out that it had happened. I'd say probably 99%, maybe 95% think that it was the right decision. Some questioned the timing of it, and some question went on to say that it's the right decision if we put someone there, as long as we've got someone else lined up, and that's the right person. Um, whether we have or not is another matter. TFG apparently like to act quickly on these kind of things, so um, hopefully they do, because hopefully they don't adopt the Everton way of fannying about for ages and dragging it out as long as possible. I don't think my grey whiskers can handle that. I'll end up with a big white beard and white hair by the time if they carry on the way former owners have done. Um, the talk was where I said before about the mutual decision. So apparently there was a meeting on Monday, and TFG were willing to back Dyche, but he indicated that he feels like he's taken the club as far as he can. He's kind of stuck as where to change it, but refused to resign. I was like, why would you? If you're getting paid a fat wedge, you're still coming in. You're still doing your day to day management. You come in. I guess that's the thing with managers, in it, and people saying if they're not doing a job, if you were in any other walk of life, you'd get your marching orders. But the thing is, although winning is the most important thing for the club and getting up there, his job is on a day to day basis doing a lot of other things, and who knows if he's doing them well or not. So it's difficult to just put it all down to winning. Although that it is a results business, so it's tricky to say in other walks of life, because it's not like any other walk of life, is it? Um, yeah, I don't know. That is a real tricky one. I'm not sure where I kind of lie on that. So I'm just kind of devil's advocate kind of thing. Um, and who now Potter's gone to West Ham. Who else might be available? So it was a tricky one. But the immediate kind of thoughts. Um, I've heard a lot of talk about Mourinho, a lot of talk about Carsley, maybe giving it to Baines and Coleman until the end of the season. Baines has ruled himself out of that, I believe, although he did say he would be willing to do whatever to help the club, but he doesn't want the job in a permanent um, on a permanent basis. So that's fair enough. He probably doesn't. He probably isn't ready yet. He's just with the under 18s at the moment. People saying Carsley isn't ready yet. Uh, I don't know anyone, not quite anyone. There's there's got to be a lot of people who will do a better job than Dyche has been doing at the moment. Um, so, and I can't believe that people are saying no chance to people like Mourinho and Potter. Potter didn't have the best time at Chelsea, but he did do a really good job at Brighton. And people saying Brighton aren't as big a club, they aren't as big a club as Everton, but they're a much better team, and they were a much better team when Potter was in charge, unfortunately. And that's where we are at the moment. I found myself today uh, defending. You should defend your team, but with Everton fans, you are kind of you're all kind of knocking the club together, or you're supporting the club together, or you feel like you can um, talk about the weaknesses that you do have. But one of my colleagues today, and he's a red, of course, said that our players are uh, 17th best squad of players, or worst squad of players in the league. If you just look at it, and I don't know how I feel about that. He said, "Well, who out of our team would get into um, do any other sides?" And I started looking at it, and we've still got Pickford, who's one of the best in the league. Um, are See, the fullbacks at the moment are they're a little bit because we've got the injuries going on, and there hasn't been, right back we've got Young, who's having a decent season and an amazing experience, but is, let's face it, he's at the end of his career. Then Mikalenko hasn't been great. He's been solid in to some extent, but hasn't had a good time over the last few games. So you could probably say we could strengthen our fullback. But then we've got Branthwaite, who's England's next big thing, apparently, in defence. Tarkovsky, who's always been on the fringes of potentially getting an England call up, again, has been caught out a little bit lately, but maybe that's just because a massive amount of sustained pressure. You know, uh, they would get into other sides in the league. And then you've got Garner, who not that long ago was at PSG. He'd get into other sides. Maybe he'd get into, 8 out of the Premier League sides. I'm not saying he'd walk into City sides, or the shite side, or even like Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, whatever. We've got some decent players. You know, the the team hasn't been playing well. The players themselves individually have not been performing well. Whether that's down to the management, or have they just gone rubbish? Calvert Lewin, is he a bad player now? He's had 2 bad seasons, and injuries all over the show. What is the real Calvert Lewin? Who is the real Calvert Lewin? Is he the one who was banging them in for Carlo and was on the verge of being England's top striker? Didn't quite get a run of games, but was up there. Only for Harry Kane being the main man. He probably would have got a few more games. Is he just the worst striker in the league? Somewhere in between is a decent player. He's not going to he's not going to be in the race for the golden boot, but he's better than he's performing at the moment. And it's I think a new manager will come in and see that. Then Mangala's a good player. Decore, another one. For the last 2 years, I don't know what his role has been. I said this on Monday. Where's he playing? He's playing in midfield, but he's not an attacking midfielder. He's got Mangala and Garner behind him, so he's not that holding central defensive midfielder. He's just there, and I don't think he's not a bad player. So I don't know whose side he'd walk into at the moment, but when that more dynamic version of himself, you get into a few sides, and I refuse to believe these players have just gone bad. Njai will get into a good few sides. I don't know. Am I looking rose tinted? Because we all look together and we're all like, oh, there's a lot of shouts saying this is the worst Everton side I've ever seen. And productivity wise, it's hard to argue because we're not creating any chances, and we're not scoring goals. So it's hard to argue with that. But I've seen much worse individual Everton players than we have all over the park. So, um, yeah, it's a tricky one. But defending the Blues, and I haven't done that often because I've been talking mainly to Blues about stuff, and we're all like, we can't believe what's happening. So, uh, it does kind of make force you to look at it and go, actually, are these that bad? Maybe they are. Maybe whoever comes in will find that out and just scratch their head and be like, how did Dicey even get us to this position with these players? I'm hoping that's not the case. But they could come in and go, right, you do that job. You get up front. Wingers get up, get the ball into the box. Fullbacks overlap and actually have some shots towards those white things with the net attached to it, and we'll we'll see then. Hopefully, okay. So I'll come back to this in a sec, but here's how you can get in touch with us.
This is the Not Bitter, Just Better Everton podcast. If you haven't already, go and like us on Facebook, facebook.com/EFC Not Bitter, Just Better, or you can find us on Twitter @JustBetterEFC.
Thanks for everyone who is already following. If you are hearing this for the first time, feel free to get in touch and follow us on our platforms, Facebook, Insta, or X, and also and like and subscribe on YouTube. So, Dyche gone. Apparently, he left a bitter 9-word message. This clickbait that goes out on social media is just saying. I can't remember what the phrase was now because I printed me notes off before I wrote it down. But the last part was that you let me down. And I think he let himself down and he's let us down and he let the players down by having them playing that way. But there has got to be some blame for the players, and they have let themselves down and us down and Dice down because they've not always put a shift in as much as they could do, and that's disappointing. But it's down to the manager in the end. And if they're not putting the shift in, he needs to make those changes. And more often than not, he didn't. And he needs to find a suitable way of playing, and he didn't. So you live by the sword, die by the sword. All those cliches. He didn't do it. So um, his replacement. So this is why I've been holding off. I've been holding off. So I'm recording now just after 12:30, and I'm in work and I'm starving because I've been holding off. I wanted to record last night, right after the game, but then there was talk today that TFG are meeting. They've already arranged to meet with Moyes, which is a curious one because Moyes has earlier came out and said that when Dyche was still in a job, and he said that he wouldn't really be up for the move going into a job where a team are fighting against relegation. So I think for the Freaking group though, uh, it's kind of a no-brainer to have the conversation. I'm not saying to a point, but familiarity, getting stability back. Um, rather than going out there and getting someone like who's one of the other favourites, Mourinho, he hasn't been in this kind of position before in the Prem. Uh, could he come in and do that kind of job, or is he too big in that sense? Is he too costly? Would it rock the boat too much? All these kind of questions. So Moyes is the favourite so far. Uh, Discussions already rumoured to be underway, and he was rumoured to be at the club today, which is why I've been holding off in case there was an announcement made this morning. As of 12:38 now, there hasn't been an appointment. It's still just rumoured, but rumoured that he could take charge as early as the weekend, and that would get him in place for Wednesday's game against Villa. On a short term deal. Uh, so for Moyes, the way he left the club, uh, I don't think anyone begrudged him at the time, the way he left the club for going to Man U. It was afterwards when he came in and tried to get our players, Baines and Fellaini, on the cheap and saying you're standing in their way. When a few weeks literally before, he was the man who was standing in the way of other clubs. and so he should understand that. But in what you've got to do your job to the best of your ability for the club you're at. Um, so it wasn't the best way to the way you left. Fine with afterwards, not so fine with, and that's where a lot of Blues still have a lot of ill feeling towards Moyes. A lot has been also a lot have also been saying that they would welcome him back, and we want that stability and come home and all that kind of stuff. And 11 years he was with us, adding that stability. It wasn't always the best of times, but some level of consistency, and maybe he is the man for the next 6 months to take us into the new stadium, or at least say farewell to the old lady. The last few months at Goodison, maybe that would be the right decision. The other options, Mourinho, been talked about, odds at 9-4 in some places. Currently managing Fenerbahce, but expressed interest in returning to the Premier League. We've we he seems to have always had a lot of respect for Everton, and in one sense, I think it'd be a great fit. It would bring back that siege mentality, which we've been missing an awful lot. And yeah, I think, and people saying he's past and all that kind of stuff. It's Mourinho. Come on, he could really build something. But there is the kind of the circus that goes with him, though. Uh, if he spins it the right way, I kind of like the idea of that circus and putting that out there. It's just the negativity, and I don't know how he'd handle with a club like Everton and the negativity that comes with it. Just because we've been down on our luck for a few seasons and we've had to deal with a lot of change. Um, so it's an interesting one. But he's still at Fenerbahce, and it wasn't. I think he was sacked from Roma by the freaking group. So I don't know whether he would or wouldn't. But anyway, Moyes seems favourite. Other potential candidates: Baines up until the summer. Um, I think he would do that. Um, I think it might be better, if someone like Moyes did come in with Baines as an understudy, or second in charge, and then kind of groomed him to go on for next year. Maybe another one, Lee Carsley, under 21 manager. So Baines 5-1 in some places, Carsley 8-1. Segment of the fans favour a Moyes return. He's had success in the past. It's been a long spell. Even though he won stuff with West Ham, he never really had the best of times there. With his relationship with the fans, they weren't happy when he went back there the second time. Um, it's some people just you can't please some people at all. Um, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I wouldn't be averse to Moyes returning on a short-term basis. Um, hopefully, he can right some of the wrongs and get us up the table, and then go off maybe in the summer, or maybe even do really well. And who knows? Um, Mourinho winning pedigree, but his other stints in the Premiership, Chelsea aside. So Man U and Tottenham, yeah. So the board are keen on bringing in someone who can bring stability and experience and steer us clear of relegation. Um, Moyes could be a sensible choice. Uh, some supporters are saying they want a fresh approach and younger managerial options. Potter might have been a decent option, but when we've gone with those kind of choices in the past, we haven't given them long enough, I don't think. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there because I'm going to record another podcast on Monday, looking ahead to the Wednesday's game at home against Villa. Hopefully, we'll have someone in place by then. If it's Moyes, then so be it. If anything happens whilst I'm editing this together, I'll record another little snippet. But in the meantime, we'll just keep our eyes on all the feeds. And thanks for listening. If you haven't already liked us on all the channels, go and do that. And I shall catch you later. Have a good weekend, Blues. Nice one.